Welcome, I am Lawrence Gallian, your host, and this is The Place Inside. It has been a while since we last spoke. Popocatépetl has been erupting, and I see the magnificent plumes issuing from the volcano every morning. Just before the sunrise, I have a beautiful clear view of the volcano. I've also been dealing with the most frustrating, bureaucratic immigration issues here in Mexico. In addition, I have been composing and recording a lot of music. Finally, I've been plunging into the world of yoga mudras. If you're interested, mudra is spelled M-U-D-R-A. M-U-D-R-A. And it is one of the forms of yoga. Those who have faithfully followed my videocast know that for all you warriors out there, I highly recommend that you study mudras. It is also gratifying to continue to hear ideas that we have discussed in The Place Inside being presented by many of the people with famous internet radio programs. People are listening to this show and taking notes. In addition, where there is yang, there is yin. The amount of attacks that I receive from a certain segment of the Christian born-again movement have not let up. I have had to stop comments on several of my videos because every day I was receiving obscene verbal garbage from these people, as well as death threats and all manner of nasty things. I want to make it clear for the last time, I love Jesus very much. I admire him, and I have thoroughly read the Bible several times. These Christians often mention with derision my quotations from Rudolf Steiner. Yet these fools do not even realize that Steiner, among his several pursuits, was a Rosicrucian, an esoteric Christian, not the watered-down version that most people know, but the real Rosicrucianism. Rudolf Steiner spoke of three ways, what he called the way of quote-unquote yoga, the quote-unquote Christian Gnostic way, and the quote-unquote Rosicrucian way. In his book, Start Now, he has at least 3 esoteric translations of the Our Father that are really amazing. Every day he would stand and say the Our Father at the top of his lungs, so loud that everyone in the street below heard him. I, as you know, am a Sufi and a Muslim. Jesus Christ is mentioned more times in the Quran than is the name Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Jesus is especially important to the Sufis. He is regarded as one of the greatest prophets in Islam. Moreover, he is a sort of guiding light to all who practice Sufism. Since we're talking about Jesus, there is an amazing new book that I want you to run out and get. You can get it as a Kindle book or a paperback. It's called The Electric Jesus, The Healing Journey of a Contemporary Gnostic. It is by Jonathan Talat Phillips, and the introduction is by Graham Hancock. This book is hot off the presses and is getting amazing reviews. Interestingly, while Jonathan Phillips has been on the scene now for quite a while as a political commentator and someone who arranges political events, he is just coming out now as a Sufi. He was instructed by one of his spirit guides to ask people to now call him by his Sufi name, Talat. Buy it. You will not regret purchasing this book. When I was younger, I studied to become a monk. Believe it or not, yes, I was profoundly attracted to the world of contemplation, service, and growing my own food. However, I realized during my later teen years that I wanted to become married someday, and so I left the Catholic Church, as priests and monks cannot marry. While my life may have been simpler if I had become a monk, I do not regret my decision. I would not trade 1 year of my long life for the insulated life of a monk. A teacher, a Sufi teacher, once told me, quote, "The little Sufi sits on top of the mountain. The big Sufi lives down among the people," unquote. In many ways, it is easy to never have to face oneself if one is sitting on top of a mountain meditating. There is never anyone to reflect you back to yourself. It is also like young Buddha. If you are sitting on top of a mountain, then you are never confronted by the suffering, the sick, and those who need a teacher. I am telling you about my personal life because of my commitment to transparency. Perhaps for some, the road to self-actualization is a smooth and easy one. But frankly, I do not trust anyone who tells me how easy it was for them to awaken all the many abilities we have as human beings. Those who truly think it was easy, well, I suspect that they are hiding a huge amount of unconscious material in their unconscious minds, and that they are living in denial. You can see it in the lives of many famous gurus. At some point in their lives, they self-destruct. Some become addicted to recreational drugs. Most start hitting on the women in the groups, and often have multiple affairs with many of their devotees. And this is all while they're married. And they start becoming obsessed with money and possessions, demanding more and more donations, and buying more and more houses, cars, and so forth. They charge enormous amounts of money to attend their workshops, so that eventually they are surrounded only by very wealthy students, because the average person cannot afford their programs. What is the result of this? Well, many of the very wealthy are very bored with their lives. Many have never worked a day in their life. And so what is for us a profound lifetime pursuit is for them simply a form of entertainment, guru TV. Let me disabuse you of a notion. Being a spiritual person is not an insurance policy that nothing bad or tragic will ever happen to you. The churches, mosques, ashrams, synagogues, etc. are filled with people who deep down inside are scared to death, and who are hoping that if they just become quote-unquote spiritual, all their problems will magically disappear, and they will be forever protected from any kind of harm or sickness. This even has gotten to the terrible point where in some spiritual groups, if you become sick, they shun you. They don't go visit you to see how you're doing. They reject you. They tell you that you have failed in some way. If you like to read, and I suspect most of you do, in addition, if you like to watch film biographies of great people, one thing will immediately become apparent. These people suffered greatly. Now, I am not saying that suffering is something that you should go out and seek for, although some people actually do that. What I am saying is that the metaphysical freedom warrior must endure many trials and initiations during his or her life. From children's books about great magicians to the works of Friedrich Wilhelm Nietzsche, Carl Gustav Jung, and Hermann Hesse, the hero is always confronted by extremely difficult challenges, quests, battles, and initiation ceremonies. Yet all too often we forget the pain of their struggles and focus only on the gains that their struggles brought them. So first, let us throw away all notions that I or anyone else can magically take away your pain. What I can say is this, however: when one has powerful goals, great and noble dreams, work that profoundly fulfills you, then this softens the blows that life brings you. And also, in addition to that, my goal is not to be your spiritual teacher forever. I want you to develop into a fully actualized human being, and for you to then go out and teach other human beings. That is my goal. I do not seek to have thousands and thousands of devotees who are attached to me by the umbilical cord and who never will leave me. Then I feel I will have failed in my mission. In this podcast, we are going to examine something of essential importance for the metaphysical freedom warrior. We are going to explore your body. Unless you know that you have many more bodies than your physical body, and unless and until you familiarize yourself with each body and how it works, you are useless. There is no way that you are going to create a soul that can continue on past death if you neglect to work on all the aspects of your being. And in this podcast, we will focus on the aspects known as the subtle bodies of the human being. First, I want to answer questions posed to me about the morphogenetic field. For those who know about this and want to use it in their self-defense against intruders of all kinds, listen to the previous podcast before this. For those who don't know, a good place to start is the books of Rupert Sheldrake, a genius, who for years suffered the scorn of the academic community and the devotees of the academic community, but who now works for a prestigious university doing all kinds of experiments, from experiments you and your friends can do at home, all the way to experiments that involve tens of thousands of participants participating in gigantic studies of what used to be called ESP, or extrasensory perception. He is the first scientist, specifically a biologist, who quote-unquote discovered the morphogenetic field. First, we start with this concept of quote-unquote field. You and I both know that there is an electrical and photon field, a light field, emanating out of the human body. The photons emanate directly out of our genes. Even this much scientists agree on. One amazing fact is that scientists discovered that the magnetic field coming from our hearts is much stronger than that coming from our heads. We know of magnetic fields, electrical fields, many others. But what is a morphogenetic field? Well, the word literally means, quote, to form generating fields, unquote. These fields are hypothesized by Rupert Sheldrake to exist as a genetic blueprint for every species on Earth. And it's going to be interesting later in this podcast. You're going to hear about blueprints of the body. They permeate the thought sphere of any given species and determine every aspect of its evolution. As illustrated by the 100th monkey phenomenon, a quantum leap in evolution takes place whenever a critical mass within that species has learned a new behavior or achieved a new state of consciousness. Quantum theory has given rise to quantum field theories, and the classical fields have been quantized in QFT. It is now understood that fields can be thought of or consisting of field quantas, Quantas, or particles with integer spins. These are called bosons, and the so-called matters are particles of half-integer spins, which are known as fermions. Let us unpack that. Scientists used to think that for every part of our bodies, we have a corresponding gene. For example, the length of our fingers, eye color, hair color, muscular strength, height, and so forth. However, they discovered that there are not enough genes to have a one-to-one relationship with, say, the amount of hair on your body and where it grows and how it grows. Rupert Sheldrake, by the way, he was a great friend of Terence McKenna, and you can find a great video of them talking together on YouTube. Please, I want you to check that out. Go look for it. Terence McKenna and Rupert Sheldrake in conversation. I don't know exactly what it's titled, but you can find it. Morphogenetic fields can be observed all around you in nature. Ever see a flock of birds flying? And then suddenly, as one flock makes a turn so precise that it is faster than it would take for individual birds to do that maneuver just using the senses that they have. The same with a school of fish. I am sure you've been amazed if you have an aquarium or visited one of those giant walk-through aquariums and you observe schools of fish turning on a dime. This is because they are all locked together in step in a morphogenetic field. Spiritual masters, esoteric masters, spiritual scientists, and so forth have been teaching that animals and birds have one single mind for thousands of years. They call it a group consciousness or a group mind. Rudolf Steiner spoke at length about this, at least 50 years before Rupert Sheldrake proposed the concept of the morphogenetic field. I think I should spell his last name for you, or his full name. Rupert is Rupert, Sheldrake is Sheldrake. So Sheldrake also is fascinated by everyday occurrences of the morphogenetic field. For example, why is it that you so often know when someone is intensely staring at you behind your back? Private detectives, all the way to soldiers preparing for combat, are told never to gaze directly at the perpetrator or enemy. As horrible as it is, if a soldier must stab someone in the back, they are taught never to stare at the person's back, or else they will turn around. And not only this, private detectives who are watching on video people shopping in the stores and who are looking out for shoplifters. For years and years, they've known a common, simple, easy trick that they do. They're taught to simply stare at the person in the video. And 9 times out of 10, that person stops stealing from the store. It is amazing that this occurs also through videotape. And I am sure it occurs through the internet, through email, through posts on different groups like Facebook. And I know it occurs in music. The great composer, music healer, Jonathan Goldman, has repeatedly said that it is not enough to compose beautiful music and then send it out to people and expect it to be healing. He says that first he has to meditate and get himself into a conscious state of mind, of love, of healing, compassion, and mercy. And if he is consistently feeling those feelings of love and compassion and mercy and healing as he is performing, as he is recording, then and only then does he release that music. So the morphogenetic field works very much in music also. Sheldrake is also doing immense experiments involving the uncanny ability of cats and dogs to know when their owner is coming home. This is like popular knowledge. Everybody knows that their dog or cat knows when they're coming home. But Sheldrake is videotaping people leaving the office and simultaneously videotaping the dog or the cat leaping to the window. He has demonstrated beyond any shadow of a doubt that there is a significant proportion of pets, and cats in Los Angeles in particular for some strange reason, know the second their owner leaves his or her cubicle at work. He has an average wait time of about 10 minutes for the pet to actually wait for its owner to return home at the window. But there is a definite response in the animal when the human being physically is leaving their job, even before they get into their car. Many of us know who is calling when the phone is ringing. Sheldrake is doing large-scale, double-blind studies on how many people know who is calling, and also if this ability can be strengthened. Another person to investigate is Dr. Pim van Lommel. Pim is P-I-M as in Mary, M as in Mary, Van, V-A-N, Lommel, L-O, M as in Mary, M as in Mary, E, L as in Larry. Dr. van Lommel also discusses how his controversial findings have been accepted by the medical community. Quote, "The gap is not as big as you would presume. It just looks that way because the skeptics are very active. The skeptics have their own truth, and they do not listen to somebody else who has a different opinion. There is no discussion possible with skeptics because they have the truth. However, many physicians are a little bit more open, but they will not write articles. They will not write or tell about it in public. I know some physicians who have had a near-death experience. They said to me and wrote to me that what happened to me now, I've always said this is impossible, and now it has happened to me. Unquote, unquote. Sadly, many scientists desperately need a world view, an explanation of things. They want to tie up the entire world in a nice, beautiful little gift-wrapped package with a beautiful bow on top of it. So that helps to make them feel secure and safe. And that kind of thinking, you and I know, is very dangerous. Truly, we are almost worse off than when the Roman Catholic Church burned at the stake anyone who did not confess to some kind of witchery. Generally, they burned anyone even possibly concerned with ESP, or what we now call telepathy, parapsychology, near-death experience, psychic phenomena, psi, medium communication, reincarnation, and afterlife encounters. Believe it or not, there are over 2,000 magazines devoted to the skeptical reader, while there are only about 5 scientists working in these areas and publishing in these areas. However, Rupert Sheldrake is fighting back, and fighting back hard. He is exposing the quote-unquote truths espoused by the skeptical scientific community, which they routinely use to explain away psychic phenomena, and demonstrating that many of the scientists' quote-unquote wisdom comes from, believe it or not, hypotheses that have never been tested or demonstrated in the laboratory. For example, they say that a person generally has hundreds of friends and acquaintances of who each day we think of. And so we think we know that so-and-so is calling simply because there are always several possibilities of who may be calling. This is all well and, I grant, even possible. But the skeptics have never produced one single study proving that the power to know someone is staring at you, the power to know someone is going to physically stab you in the back, the power to psychically know who is calling, etc., is only a coincidence. Not one single study, yet all of them talk about that, it's just coincidence, it's just coincidence. Most of us all can recall circumstances that defy all rational explanation. I myself have had amazing experiences in this regard. Now, another name I want to throw out at you: Bert Hellinger, B-E-R-T, Hellinger, H as in Harry, E-double-L-I-N-G as in George, E-R as in Robert. The German philosopher-psychologist. He is considered the founder of family constellations in their modern form. He does not offer any explanation for why his methods work, but the general consensus is because of family morphogenetic fields. Just as we know when our mother is calling us on the phone without looking at the caller ID, our ancestors on both our mother's and father's side participate in our own personal ancestral field, or as Hellinger would call it, family constellation. Now, the ability to know if some wild, vociferous, carnivorous animal is staring at your back might be very, very helpful in an evolutionary sense for survival purposes. So that is maybe one way that this has evolved. If you have a very difficult problem to solve or to work out, and traditional psychotherapy is not working for you, I suggest you search for a family constellation therapist in your area, as you should do when hiring any professional like a psychologist. You should only participate in a family constellation proper with someone who has a master's degree in family constellations. This is not to say that you cannot honor your ancestors by yourself. Furthermore, this is not to say that they are not helping you in the present. So, they are with you. They are with you now. However, to discover why you have this or that serious problem in your life, for example, a recent and unexpected death in the family, or if you were raped, or if you feel you cannot trust anyone, or if you are alone in spite of having had many dates and you never can seem to find a match for you, then you need to go to a family constellation expert. All right, now let us explore these bodies of the human being so that you can see how we are made. Please remember and note, I am not talking about chakras here. Chakras are an entirely different subject matter. Just as a biology teacher will teach you about the liver, the pancreas, the spleen, the intestines, the heart, and so forth, the spiritual scientist will talk about your other bodies, your subtle bodies. Moreover, just as we can make contact with other beings using our physical body, we can make contact with even more beings using our subtle bodies. I am sure you have heard of the astral body and astral traveling. The astral body exists, but it is only one of many bodies in our system. Now, different schools and traditions have various names for these bodies. What you must first know is that there are 7 bodies. We start with the physical body, then the etheric body, and then the astral body. Let us start with a quick rundown of the bodies, and then we will get more deeply into each one in this podcast, I promise you. The physical body needs no further description at this moment. It is the full manifestation on earth of our divine body and spirit. Matter is like crystallized spirit. Like ice is crystallized water. Same substance, different state. The human being shares his or her physical body in common with the minerals, stones, metals, jewels, the very earth itself, all that comes from the earth in terms of, let us say, the word rocks, R-O-C-K-S. Then comes the etheric or causal body. This body gives us life. It is the human template. The human being shares his or her physical body in common with as we mentioned, with the stones, with the rocks, with the minerals, with the jewels, and so forth and so on. The etheric body we share in common with the plant kingdom. You ever wonder, you go outside or look out your window, how tall trees are? Comparison with the height of a human being. And then think to yourself, well, how high is that tree compared with the height of the average human being? The reason is because the etheric body is getting full reign. The life body is fully empowered in the plant kingdom. And so it grows to enormous heights and widths and so forth, and shoots down roots deep, deep, deep in the soil. The astral body, or as it is sometimes known as the emotional body, is exactly that, the place of our emotions. As our emotions can be very beautiful, very loving, very uplifting, some people's astral bodies are filled with anger, hatred, the desire for revenge, enormous fears. They have astral bodies that are quite frightening, and they experience all sorts of terrors in the astral world. The human being shares his or her astral body in common with the animals. For as we all know, especially those of us who have pets, animals are very emotional beings. They are very loving. Then comes what is called the I, personal pronoun capital letter I, or ego body, also called the causal body. This is not the ego in the psychological sense. This is not the me ego. This I or ego is the divine spark that human beings have within them. Some people cultivate their inner divinity, while some do not want to even believe it exists. Then we have 3 more bodies that are usually not developed in 99% of the humans living on Earth. You must work very hard to manifest these bodies. They are like muscles you have that you never exercise. They're there, but unless you exercise them, you will never see them or benefit from them. That is why people do cross-training. They might do cycling one day, swimming the next, lifting weights the next, because they want to involve as many muscles as possible. That's why also free weights are better, because that is making use of our balance, and we are utilizing muscles that we would not normally use in a gym that does not have free weights. In the future, however, more and more humans will be activating these last 3 bodies. What are they called? They are called, so after we have first we have the physical, the etheric, the astral, the I or ego. Then we have what is called the spirit self, or manas. After that comes the life spirit, or buddhi. And finally, spirit man, or spirit human, also known as atma, A-T-M as in Martha, A, atma. Okay, one last thing before we delve into describing these bodies. Although in charts they are pictured frequently as layers around the physical body, in fact these 7 bodies interpenetrate one another. Yes, some of them do extend beyond the size of your physical body. However, what is so important to remember is that we are not talking about hierarchy here, or layers of a cake for that matter, but the amazing interplay of these forces within you. Have you ever considered a human skeleton? I am sure you have all seen one or seen pictures of them hanging in laboratories. Have you ever wondered why they have to hang them up and they do not stand on their own? This is because there is no reason why a human being should be able to stand in the first place. Just think, we have this spine all the way in the back of us, but in the front of us we have all these organs, intestines, which are so long and big. We have a lot of fat, or some of us have a lot of fat, and yet we do not fall over. We have this very heavy head. Some of you don't know how heavy the head itself is, and again, only a few vertebrae and muscles to hold it up. If biologists really came clean, they would have to admit that there really is no way for the human being to stand. Amazing, huh? Just given its physical structure. It is because the life force flows through our physical bodies that we do not fall down. This life force I am speaking about is the etheric body of the human being, but it also includes in various degrees the other subtle bodies. We say subtle in the sense of delicately complex and understated, rarefied, highly refined, and not immediately obvious or comprehensible. The information I am going to give you comes from the wisdom of many of the greatest esoteric masters from time immemorial, along with my own understandings and learnings. Also, for those of you who have been faithfully looking for the second edition of my book, I personally apologize to you. I was promised by New Falcon that it would be out months ago, but I guess they want to finish selling out their present stock of books from the first printing. But I do promise you it will be available. Keep looking. Please write to New Falcon and ask them, when is the second edition going to be available? Ask them if they can mail you a copy. Maybe they can, I don't know. But I thank you for looking for the book. And now to the 7 bodies of the human being. The spiritual bodies, or the supersensible 7 bodies of the human being. First, the chemical or physical body. The physical chemical body is the ultimate medium of all the other planes. In other words, the result of all these higher planes. The earth is the apotheosis of spirit. As above, so below, as below, so above. Unluckily, a person cannot take full advantage of one plane until he or she has gained some wisdom and authority over the plane above that one. The physical chemical body is the finest instrument on the planet Earth. It is capable of receiving and transmitting the subtlest of messages. However, to be of real use, the student must master the following body: the etheric, life, vital body. Remember, the higher levels control the lower levels. And also remember, these terms, higher and lower, are merely conveniences to envision all these processes. In fact, all these bodies intertwine and exist together. Be aware of your physical chemical body moment to moment, not only outwardly aware, but also aware of your body from the inside. Lydia Eccles writes, "Think of your direct body experience of life. No one can lie to you about that. Become sensitive to the way your body feels on the inside. From time to time, pause and feel what is going on in your chest, in your stomach, and your legs. How does your head feel, your shoulders, your arms and hands? Sense your face and inside your neck. Most of all, be sensitive to your chest and especially your heart. Awareness of the body teaches you to be consciously present in the now. Presence. Be aware of reality as it arises. It is the presence. The sacred remembrance of the body is the highest state of spirituality. You think you know what everything is, but you do not know what anything is. Leave aside all your reasoning, explanations, dogma, and opinions. Let go of definitions. One can only abide as the very condition in which all conditions rise and fall. And a good practice for that I learned from Leonard Jacobson, who said, merely to enter into presence, become aware of something in your environment. Like right now, I'm holding a pencil. This pencil is existing, and therefore I am existing along with this pencil. This is a simple way, but a powerful way, to get yourself back into the state of now. Someone also said, most people have their right foot in the past and their left foot in the future, and what's between them? They're pissing on the present. So, one can only abide as the very condition in which all conditions rise and fall. Next is the etheric, life, vital body. This body gives form to our physical chemical body, as a blueprint does to a building. Some adepts use the metaphor of a template. It preserves and shapes all our organs and regulates assimilation, growth, propagation, glands, and the aging process. As we mentioned, it is most clearly seen in all vegetation, plants, trees, bushes, etc. The etheric life vital body energizes the physical tissues and therefore cannot be separated from the physical body for long. Dislodgement of the etheric matrix soon brings death to the overlying physical chemical body. The moment one becomes aware of his physical chemical body from within, and I mean deep within, try to go in as deep as your spine when you're looking into yourself and feeling yourself. The second body, the etheric life body, will automatically come into view. So the more deeply you look inside yourself, in meditation, in contemplation, the more the etheric life body will come into view. This second body will be known from the outside now. If you know the first body from the inside, then you will become aware of the second body from the outside. The second body is just like the first regarding shape, but it is not solid. When the first body dies, the second remains alive for about 2 weeks. It travels with you. Then after about 2 weeks, it too is dead. It disperses, evaporates. If you come to know the second body while the first is still alive, you can be aware of this happening. The etheric life body is constantly transmitting life force energy into our physical organism. However, at about the age 35, the etheric life body begins to lose form and congruency. This loss of congruency signals the beginning of the slow deterioration of the physical chemical body. However, there are practices that I have given you in previous videocasts, podcasts, which can help strengthen the etheric life body and delay the onset of aging. In our universe, there is negative space and positive space. When you look at a naked human body, you see a certain form, but what most people do not see is what invisibly surrounds the body. They call this the negative body. That sounds confusing, so please let me explain. There are invisible hands that give the body its shape. These hands are only visible through supersensible sight, through psychic sight, in other words. These invisible hands give each part of the body its shape. It is the morphogenetic field. The head, arms, torso, sex organs, feet, and so on are shaped by the invisible hands. When you see a healthy naked body in front of you, you first become aware of the abundant life that is flowing forth from the body, the positive body. However, we suggest you pause and consider the death-like, checking, breaking force that surrounds the beautiful body, giving the body shape and form. The Egyptians developed the powers of the etheric life body to an astonishing degree. In Kemet, that is what they worked on to great depth. So remember, when you meditate on how all the different parts of your body are feeling, and then go deep inside yourself, all the way back to your backbone, to your spinal column. And then gradually, the more you know your spine, the more you know your pelvis, the more you know yourself from these deeper layers, then the etheric body will come into view. Next, we come to the astral body, the most famous of the bodies for people who investigate esotericism or occultism, psychic abilities. The astral desire, Astrosome body. This body is the emotional aspect of our being, and it is also divided into a lighter and a darker half. This body awakens life out of unconsciousness, out of sleep. You notice that the trees don't move around, they don't walk around, but animals do walk around because they have been awakened out of their sleep. Just like rocks, unless there is a landslide, they don't walk around either. The astral desire body also called the Astrosome body, is most clearly seen in the animal world. The sheikhs and great teachers say that the human being possesses 4,010,000 spiritual qualities of animals. The human being is the apotheosis of all the animals that have ever existed. So that's going back to the dinosaurs and very, very ancient times. Some teachers say that we should not act like animals. Yet I hate that when they say that. Animals do not commit genocide. Consider the world's greatest explorers like Cortez, who decimated native populations, raped the women, stole their gold and artifacts, and destroyed their culture. Do you know Cortez and his men murdered 6,000 men, women, and children in one day in their holy temple at Cholula? Humans kill other humans by the millions out of ideology, religious fanaticism, and socio-political ideas. Humans casually kill animals for sports and pleasure. The great sheikh who initiated me, Sheikh Muzaffar Ozak, he initiated me in 1981. He wrote that sometimes such people look like human beings, but they are animals. They act worse than animals. Consider the most violent, carnivorous, harmful animals, the cobra, tiger, lion. After all, how much destruction can they cause? They can kill a few men and women, but a human being who becomes an animal can kill millions." Unquote. We humans, if we dare call ourselves by that name, might learn more valuable lessons by clearly observing the animal world, rather than by studying the tawdry history of human behavior. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, actually said this, quote, "Revile not the world, for God, He is the world," unquote. This is pointing to the fact that the existence of the world is God's existence, without partner or like or equal. The astral body is concerned with emotions. It is a living, polychromatic ocean of feeling with astral, quote-unquote, fish. In other words, emotional images swimming through it. These are the, quote-unquote, fish of sentiment, nostalgia, longing, romance, regret, anger, and infatuation. The astral is an orgy of emotionally changed and charged pictures. Remember, we mentioned a darker and lighter half. If fear is one side of the coin, fearlessness is the other. If you hide the coin and live in denial, pretending that you have no fear, you will never be able to know fearlessness. The student who accepts the presence of fear within him or her, and who has investigated it fully, will soon reach a place where he or she will want to find out what is beyond fear. What is behind fear? The moment the student turns the rock of fear over, he or she becomes fearless. Similarly, violence will turn into compassion. The moment you are inside the second body, remember that's the etheric body, not outside it, but when you are inside it, you will be outside the third, the astral body. Remember how that works. Once you master one body from the inside, you begin to perceive the body that is, quote-unquote, above it. There is no need even of any willpower to gain entry. Just the wish to be inside is enough. If you want to go in, you can go in. The astral desire Astrosome body is a vapor like the second body, but it is transparent. So the moment you are outside, you will be inside. You will not even know whether you are inside or outside because the boundary is transparent. I knew a lady who actually was plagued by gigantic amoebas that floated through her home, and she did not even realize that these were images that were coming directly from her astral body. And since they were fearsome to her, it showed that there was a great deal of negativity in her astral body. Up to the fifth body, the size of these bodies remain the same. The content will change, but the size will be the same up to the fifth. With the sixth body, the size will be cosmic. Then with the seventh, there will be no size at all, not even the cosmic. The astral desire Astrosome body is also concerned with issues of doubt and trust. If these are transformed, doubt becomes trust, and thinking becomes awareness. If doubts are repressed, you never attain trust. That is why you should leave any teacher or guru that does not allow you to express your doubts fully. The student who represses his or her doubts never attains to trust. It will creep within as a cancer and eat up your vitality. The goal is to reach a point where you will begin to have doubt about doubt itself. The moment you begin to doubt doubt, trust begins. Awareness and clarity can be achieved through the transformation of this subtle body. Decision comes from a state of clarity that is beyond thoughts. Thoughts have no connection with decision. He or she who is always engrossed in thoughts never reaches a decision. That is why it invariably happens that those people whose lives are less dominated by thoughts are resolute, whereas those who think a great deal lack determination. These thinkers can never come to a decision and are always finding some fault with what they are considering. No one and nothing measures up to their impossible standards. What is needed by these thinkers is to allow themselves to make decisions. And the way to allow themselves to make decisions is through clear awareness. Now let's go to the egoic body, the I, the spirit, the spark, the flame of divinity that is inside you. The fourth body is wallless. It is just a boundary, so there is no difficulty in entering and no need of any method. One who has achieved the third can achieve the fourth easily. This body is the spark of divine consciousness. Humankind has desires that transcend their everyday needs. Animals, for example, hunger and thirst and sexually desire, but only live in the moment. Humans can plan for and sacrifice for anticipated pleasure in the future. They recognize the permanence behind the transitory experience. Thus, the spirit egoic mental body is the quote-unquote I am, consciousness of self-awareness. A good way of understanding this principle is to realize that you can only say I when speaking about yourself, never for any other person. Only the being uttering the word can apply it to him or herself. I am an I to myself only. This ability to say I is an important step in the evolution of the human wave. One day animals, plants, and then even minerals will be able to utter this word. As we'll be seeing, the student must eventually transcend the mental egoic divine spark body. Plutarch wrote, quote, "The mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be lighted," unquote. Apart from this physical form, human beings have the power of articulation, and it is that faculty that confers distinction upon humanity. The student's job is to purify the intellect, weakening the ego's hold on it. Now I'm talking about the common psychological idea of the ego, the unconscious content that resides deep in our minds. Coming into presence, coming into the I am, coming into the be here now, thereby permitting the intellect to be a pure vehicle for the one being, to recognize clearly a teacher, guru, sheikh, from the charlatan or egomaniac. The potential disciple must already have purified his intellect to some extent, or her intellect to some extent. If the disciple's ego still dominates his intellect, he will tend to be drawn to these charlatans, and their influence will help his ego to become even stronger. In contrast, an individual who has already acquired some humility and made progress in virtue will be able to recognize the genuine saint. So we have to realize here that many people claim to be victims of these horrible teachers and gurus, etc., but they don't realize that the only reason that they are at the mercy or attracted to these people is because there is something dark, nasty, and evil inside them that is attracted to these negative gurus. It is said in 12-step groups that a dysfunctional person can walk into a party or gathering and immediately, out of 50 people, spot the one person who is dysfunctional out of everyone in that group. To go beyond the fourth, to go beyond the egoic I, spirit, body, there is as much difficulty as there was in going beyond the first, the physical, chemical, mineral body, because now the egoic self ceases. The great teacher, Yasavi Sheikh Ismail Atta, gave us this instruction: accept this advice from me. Imagine that the world is a green dome in which there is nothing but God and you, and remember God until the overwhelming theophany overcomes you and frees you from yourself, and nothing remains but God, unquote. There is a wall, but not in the same sense as there was a wall between the first body and the second. The difference is between dimensions now. The next plane, spirit self, is of a different kind of plane. In Islamic art, we depict the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the saints with their heads on fire. We never illustrate their faces. When the student's third eye begins to open, a great fire is created. So to cross the fourth body, there is only one technique, one method, and that is to drive the burning love that is in the heart directly into the brain. Let the ship of thought wander in the ocean of astonishment. The dualism of feeling and thinking must be resolved to a state of unity in which one thinks with the heart and feels with the brain. Now we will briefly speak about the last three bodies. The spirit self. This body arises when the student begins consciously to work with his or her astral body. So you see, the I, or the egoic body, or the mental body, is like in the middle. And then when it begins to look downward toward the astral body, then the spirit self begins to arise. And by working with this body, I mean in the sense of adopting a code of ethics, a code of chivalry. In addition, when you work through psychotherapy or counseling to understand and embrace all your feelings, do you begin to create the spirit self. Psychotherapy is part of this process. It is not the only way to achieve it, but it is one way. Thus, the spirit Noemasome body takes possession of the astral body. So the I, the divine spark, now takes possession of the astral body by uniting itself with the latter's hidden nature. This astral body, overcomes and transformed by the spirit body, may be called the spirit self. From a deeper perspective, after going inside and understanding your I, okay, and the higher ego and the ego with a capital E and the ego with a small letter E. When you begin to understand, you move into still another realm, another dimension. Thinking of moving into this body is almost nonsensical and absurd, for in actuality you do not have a limited self. So how can you lose it? The spirit self is the richest of the subtle bodies, the culmination of all that is possible for a human being. The fifth is the peak of love, of compassion, of everything that is worthwhile. Therefore, from the fifth body, the question is whether to have a limited self or to unfurl your wings and fly into other dimensions. The illusion of the limited self is the most difficult thing of all to lose, but the best way to lose it is by coming into presence. Those who are concerned with going beyond the spirit self talk of no method. Here is the realm of methodlessness, or no technique. A method or technique strengthens the limited self, because if you use anything, the user will become stronger. Your ego will go on crystallizing. It will become a nucleus of crystallization. And you know, when you are just in the moment, when you're just in the present, you're not thinking, you are just present. So you're not thinking any longer. You're not scheming. You're not trying to be enlightened. Stop trying to be enlightened, okay? Because trying to be enlightened is more of that me, me, me. I want to become enlightened. I want to become awakened. I want to achieve moksha, and so forth and so on. The question becomes, what is the solution? How do you pass through a gateless gate? The answer: do not be identified with the crystallization of your common ego or the unconscious that you have not explored and brought into the light. Just be aware of this closed house of the lowercase I that you have created. Be aware of the limitlessness of the self with a capital S. Do not do anything, and suddenly, boom, you will be beyond it. So in the spirit self-body, you must cross from the realm of method to no method. Do nothing but be aware of the closed house in which you live. The fifth body is non-dual. It does not have two possibilities. It has only one. By the time the student reaches the spirit Noemasome body, he or she develops so much capability and strength that it is simple to enter the spirit self. The difference will be that he or she who has entered the spirit self is completely rid of all unconsciousness. He or she will not actually sleep at night. That is, they sleep, but their body alone sleeps. Someone within is forever awake. So if you ever actually have the opportunity to see a saint sleeping, and if you have not yet developed these other subtle bodies, I will tell you that only their physical body is resting. None of the other bodies is resting. They are completely wide awake. Another thing that Sheikh Muzaffar taught me was this, quote, "Don't think that everything is finished when you die. You are really asleep here. What you see here is a dream. It is at death that you will wake up and see reality," unquote. Well, that is true. But let us not hope that we have to wait until death to see true reality. It is possible to see true reality while you are still alive, and I encourage you to walk this way. The life spirit, also called the diamond body. When a person, through his or her spiritual experiences, or through art, music, divines something that persists through all changes, he or she develops a sense of permanence that has the effect of working upon the etheric body. The student experiences this through the years as he or she watches with the eyes of truth the various true teachers and their breathing practices, family and spiritual brothers and sisters passing away, and new children being born. The etheric body is then transformed into life spirit, or the diamond body, by, again, the capital I, the egoic body, the divine spark. Remember, first we went down to the astral body. Now we're taking the divine spark into the etheric body. During everyday life, the spirit is not active in the etheric body. However, when the student works consciously with his or her etheric body, he or she permeates it with the spirit, and by that creates the life spirit. Through this work, the murid or the student can do such things as slow down the aging process. I've told you this before, I've taught you this before, but I will give you a break here and tell you that one way of doing this is by working with the non-dominant hand. One way to work with the etheric body using the divine spark is by doing everything with the non-dominant hand. For more information, please watch my other videocasts and listen to my various podcasts. At the stage of the life spirit, the Sufi, the dervish, the aspirant, they no longer look at life in terms of desires and attainments. In other words, the individual body-mind is no longer the point of focus. The student identifies with the omniconscious unicity instead of his or her limited self. The self has a cosmological context. This is the place of being the quote-unquote beholder. The student is aware of the spontaneous arising of reality while continuing to partake in the daily activity of life. If you look for objects, you cannot cross the 6th to the 7th. So there must be negative preparations. The student needs a negative mind. By that I mean a mind that is not longing for anything, not even enlightenment, not even deliverance, not even paradise, not even truth, a mind that is not waiting for anything, not even for paradise or God, or anyway, it just is, without any longing, without any desire, without any wish. It just is. It has isness. Nothing is of any help. Everything can be a hindrance. Then it happens. Even the cosmos is gone. And finally, we come to what is known as spirit, human, also known as the celestial body. There was a Sufi saint named Abul Hassan Karakani, and he said this, quote, "A Sufi is not concerned with patched cloak and prayer carpet. A Sufi is not concerned with the convention and custom of being a Sufi. A Sufi is one who is not, unquote. The activity of the spirit is not exhausted with its work upon the astral and etheric body. It extends now down all the way to the physical body. We can see a trace of the influence of the spirit upon the physical body when, for example, under certain circumstances, some person blushes or turns pale. In this case, the spirit is actually the cause of a person in the physical body. It is the cause of a kind of process in the physical body that causes you to turn pale. We can say then that the spirit, through this activity, works upon the physical body. This activity creates the spirit human. Something similar occurs in the animal kingdom. For example, the octopus communicates through changing the color and texture of its body. The student has completed the cycle upward through the mineral, etheric, astral, to the flame of the indwelling spirit, and then through the spirit, he or she has raised up the aforementioned bodies into the spirit realms. The student must remember always that the quote-unquote place he or she wants to go is nowhere. The student is only a shadow, the shadow of the ultimate reality. The student realizes that he or she does not exist. Only the ultimate reality exists. In fact, it is impossible, really, for the student to realize anything. Only the divine spark hidden within the human being exists. This is the student's hidden self, beyond the unlimited. The seventh body is the ultimate body, because now you have crossed even the world of causation. You have gone to the original source, to that which was before creation, and that which will be after annihilation. From the cosmic to nothingness, there is just a happening, uncaused, unprepared for, and unsought. Non-existence within existence is my rule. Getting lost in getting lost, my religion. That ends this transmission for tonight. We will be in contact soon. This is your host, Lawrence Gallian, and this is The Place Inside.